The armored SUV screamed through the desert at 80 miles per hour, and inside it, a 22-year-old woman nobody respected was driving straight into an ambush that would kill her. Private Arya Davis had been called just the driver for 6 months. In 14 minutes, she would kill 32 enemy soldiers with her bare hands on a machine gun trigger and rewrite every assumption about what courage looked like. This is her story. The day the invisible became unstoppable. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button. Stay with me until the end of this story and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Arya's story travels across this world. Now let's go back to where it started, to the morning nobody saw coming. Davis, you awake? Arya's eyes snapped open at 0430. Sergeant Kowalski's voice crackled through the tent radio. I'm up, Sergeant. Good. You got Hernandez at 0900 Reeves at 11:30, supply run at 1400. Roger that. The line went dead. Same wake-up call as every morning for 6 months. Same 3 words from Kowalski. You got transport. She rolled off her cot. The tent was empty. She was the only woman left since Martinez rotated home. She dressed in the dark, laced her boots the way her father taught her. Double knot, pull test, check again. You take care of the details, baby girl, the big things take care of themselves. Her father's voice. Always there. James Davis, ranch foreman, Montana. The man who taught her to shoot before she could drive, who put a .22 in her hands at 10 years old, and said, shooting's not about strength, it's breath control. Patience. You got both. He'd been right about the shooting. Wrong about the army. The chow hall was loud with soldiers who didn't see her. She grabbed eggs and coffee, sat 2 tables away from Echo 6. Their voices carried. Kowalski bet me $50 he could drink a gallon of milk without puking, Hernandez was saying. Did he win? Banks asked. Hell no. Puked everywhere. Still made me pay him because he said the bet was about trying not succeeding. They laughed. That hard laugh soldiers made when they were still alive enough to find things funny. Yo, Davis, Hernandez called out. You got transport today? Yeah. Need a ride to the depot at 0900. I'll be there. You're a lifesaver, kid. She wasn't a kid. She was 22, same age as half of them. But she was 5'4", 120, and she drove officers around instead of kicking down doors. In their world, that made her a kid. In their world, that made her invisible. She finished eating and walked to the motor pool. Her SUV sat in the back corner, armored boxy, covered in dust. She ran her hand along the hood. Morning, beast. She popped the hood, checked the oil, coolant, tire pressure. Same ritual every morning. Her father again. Equipment doesn't care if you're tired. It just knows if you're prepared. Davis. She turned. Kowalski stood there with his coffee looking at her with that expression that was always half annoyance, half something else. Morning, Sergeant. You doing okay? The question caught her off guard. Kowalski didn't do personal. I'm fine, Sergeant. You're quiet. I'm always quiet. Yeah, maybe too quiet. He took a sip of coffee. You got something to prove, you gotta speak up. Nobody's gonna hand you anything in this army. I'm not looking for anything to be handed to me. Then what are you looking for? She didn't answer. Couldn't, because the real answer was too raw to say out loud. I want to matter. I want to be more than the girl who drives. I want someone to see me as a soldier. But saying that would sound weak, needy, everything a soldier wasn't supposed to be. Kowalski waited a beat, then shrugged. All right, check in before you head out with Reeves. Yes, Sergeant. He walked away. She closed the hood with a solid thunk. At 0900, Hernandez climbed in with Private Miller, a kid from Tennessee, who never stopped talking. "Man, I'm so done with this place," Miller said as Arya pulled out. 143 days left. 143 days until I'm eating my mama's biscuits and never thinking about sand again. "You say that now," Hernandez said. 2 weeks home, you'll be bored out of your mind." "Bored means nobody's shooting at me. I'll take bored." "Nobody's shooting at you here either." "Not yet. But it's coming. You feel it." Arya felt it. The locals at checkpoints had been different lately. Less friendly, more watchful. Radio chatter about enemy movement in the southern sectors. The kind of signs that meant something was building. "You ever think about doing anything else, Davis?" Miller asked. "Like what? Something that doesn't involve getting mortared." "I like driving." "You're good at it," Hernandez said. "Best driver on base, smoothest ride I ever had." Something warm flickered in her chest. Closest thing to a compliment she'd gotten in months. "Thanks." "You should try out for gun truck duty," Miller said. "I don't think they'd let me." "Why not?" "Because I'm a woman. Because I'm small. Because driving officers doesn't count as earning your way in." She didn't say any of that. Just drove. They pulled up to the depot. Hernandez and Miller hopped out. "Be back in 20, Hernandez said. "I'm good." They disappeared inside. She leaned back, closed her eyes. The sun was getting hot. She thought about Montana, about her father, about the ranch and the mountains and the life she'd left behind to wear this uniform. "You're gonna do great things, baby girl. I know it." Her father's last words before she deployed. 6 months ago. 6 months of being invisible. Her radio crackled. "All units, this is TOC. We have lost contact with Echo 6 Patrol. Last known position 8 kilometers south grid November Victor 7325. QRF is spinning up. Stand by." Arya's eyes snapped open. Echo 6. Kowalski's unit. Banks. Staff Sergeant Price. 12 men. Lost contact meant ambush. Lost contact meant they were dying. TOC to all units, QRF is delayed. Mechanical issue on lead vehicle. Estimated departure in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Arya looked at the depot building. Looked at the road stretching south. 15 minutes was too long. She put the SUV in gear. Not back to base. South. Toward Echo 6. Her hands were steady, but her heart was pounding. This was insane. No authorization, no backup, no right to do what she was about to do. But Echo 6 was out there. And somebody had to go. She pushed the accelerator down. The SUV surged forward, dust plume rising behind her. Radio crackling. QRF still delayed, still no contact, still no clear picture. 6 kilometers out, she heard it. Gunfire. Pop, pop, pop in the distance. 7 kilometers. Smoke. Black columns rising. 8 kilometers. She crested the ridge and saw it. 2 Humvees burning. Bodies scattered. And on the high ground, muzzle flashes. Dozens of them. Enemy fighters pouring fire down on 12 Americans trapped below. She could see Echo 6 pinned behind rocks, returning fire, losing ground. Nobody was coming for them. Except her. She pulled onto the opposite ridge, high ground, clear line of sight. Parked. Popped the back hatch. Grabbed the M249 saw. Every vehicle carried one. She'd checked it this morning. Loaded, oiled, ready. She deployed the bipod on the hood chambered around, looked through the sights. 30 enemy fighters. Maybe more. And 1 driver. Her breath slowed. Her father's voice, breath control, baby girl. Trigger discipline. She exhaled and opened fire. The machine gun roared, brass casings ejected in a golden stream clattering on the hood. Tracers cut across the valley. The SUV rocked under recoil, but she held steady walking fire across the enemy position. Fighters dropped, scattered, turned toward her too late. Her radio erupted. "Contact east! Who the hell? It's Davis! Jesus Christ, it's Davis!" She didn't respond. Too busy firing. Enemy tried to regroup. She didn't let them. Every cluster that formed, she hit. Every weapon raised toward Echo 6, she dropped. The barrel started glowing red. Heat waves distorting the air, her hands burning through gloves. She didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Because 12 American soldiers were counting on her, and for the first time in 6 months, she wasn't just the driver. She was the wall between her brothers and death. An RPG launcher appeared on the ridgeline. Fighter lifting it to his shoulder, aiming at Echo 6. Arya shifted aim. Squeezed. The fighter dropped before he could fire. She just saved our asses. More enemy fighters broke from cover trying to flank her position, 5 of them moving fast rifles up. She swung the M249 toward them. Her father's voice again. "Don't rush! They're rushing! You're not!" She fired in controlled bursts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All down. The enemy position was collapsing now. Fighters retreating, breaking, running. She kept firing until the last one disappeared over the ridge. Then silence. Her hands were shaking. The barrel was still glowing. Smoke rising from the chamber. The radio crackled. "Davis, what's your status?" It was Kowalski, voice tight. "I'm okay, Sergeant." You just... He couldn't finish the sentence. Another voice cut in. Staff Sergeant Price, Echo 6's team leader. "Davis, we're moving to your position. Stay put. You hear me? Stay put." "Roger that." She lowered the machine gun. Her arms felt like rubber. Her heart was still pounding, but slower now, coming down from the adrenaline. She looked at the valley below, at the burning Humvees, at Echo 6 moving out from cover weapons up checking bodies. 32 enemy fighters. She'd counted them as they fell. 32. And she was just the driver. 5 minutes later, Echo 6 reached her position. 12 soldiers dirty bleeding alive. Kowalski was first up the ridge. He stopped 3 feet from her, staring. "Davis. Sergeant. You just drove into a firefight alone. QRF was delayed. You had no authorization. You had no time." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Where the hell did you learn to shoot like that?" "Montana. My dad taught me." "Your dad taught you to run a saw." "My dad taught me to shoot. The Army taught me the saw." Banks came up beside Kowalski, looking at Arya like he'd never seen her before. "You killed 32 hostiles." "I counted 32, yeah." "By yourself?" "Yes." Miller was next, his face pale. "You saved our lives." "You would have done the same." "No," Staff Sergeant Price said, walking up. "We wouldn't have, because we didn't. You did." He held out his hand. "Thank you, Private." She shook it. His grip was firm, respectful. For the first time since she'd arrived at FOB Sentinel, someone was looking at her like she was a soldier. "We need to get back," Kowalski said. "QRF's going to be here any second, and when they arrive, this is going to turn into a shitstorm of paperwork." "Am I in trouble, Sergeant?" He looked at her for a long moment. "I don't know yet, but if you are, you're in trouble for saving 12 American lives. I'll take that court-martial any day." They loaded into her SUV 12 men packed into a vehicle built for 6. Nobody complained. They were just grateful to be breathing. Arya drove them back to base, hands steady on the wheel, the same way she'd driven hundreds of times before. But everything was different now. Hernandez sat in the passenger seat, quiet for once. Davis, yeah, why'd you do it? Why'd you come? She didn't answer right away. Because the real answer was complicated. Because she'd spent 6 months being invisible, and when the moment came she couldn't stay invisible anymore. Because Echo 6 was dying, and somebody had to care enough to drive into hell. Because she wanted to matter. You would have done it for me, she finally said. Hernandez shook his head. I don't know if I would have, but I'm damn glad you did. The base appeared ahead. Guard towers, wire fences, home. As they pulled through the gate, soldiers stopped what they were doing and stared. Word had already spread on the radio. The driver had gone to war. They pulled into the motor pool. Arya put it in park, killed the engine. Echo 6 climbed out one by one. Nobody said anything at first. Then Kowalski turned back to her. Davis, report to the TOC in 30 minutes. Colonel Hendricks wants to see you. Yes, Sergeant. He started to walk away, then stopped. Turned back. Hey, Davis. Sergeant, you're not just a driver anymore. You know that, right? She didn't know what to say. So she just nodded. He nodded back. And for the first time since she'd met him, Sergeant Kowalski smiled. Good. Because we're gonna need you. They walked away, leaving her alone with her bullet-scarred SUV. She ran her hand along the hood again. Still warm from the engine, still covered in dust. But different now. Everything was different. She thought about her father, about Montana, about the words he'd said before she deployed. You're gonna do great things, baby girl. Maybe he'd been right after all. 30 minutes later, she stood at attention in the Tactical Operations Center. Colonel Hendricks sat behind her desk looking at a report. Lieutenant Morrison stood to the side. Kowalski was there too, arms crossed. Hendricks finally looked up. Private Davis. Ma'am. You broke every regulation in the book today. Yes, ma'am. You took a vehicle without authorization. You engaged enemy combatants without orders. You put yourself in a tactical situation with no backup, no air support, and no exit strategy. Yes, ma'am. And you saved 12 American lives. Arya didn't respond. Didn't know if she was supposed to. Hendricks stood up, walked around the desk. She stopped directly in front of Arya. Do you understand what you did out there? I did what needed to be done, ma'am. You eliminated 32 enemy combatants in under 10 minutes, with a weapon you've had minimal training on, in a tactical situation that would have overwhelmed most infantry soldiers. I had good training, ma'am. Your father didn't teach you this. Hendricks held up the report. This is combat instinct. This is the kind of action that wins wars. She handed Arya a piece of paper. This is a Bronze Star recommendation. I'm submitting it today. And this, she handed her another paper, is a transfer order to Ranger School, pending your acceptance. Arya's heart stopped. Ranger School. You just proved you have the skills. The question is, do you have the will? Yes, ma'am, absolutely yes. Hendricks smiled. Good, because the Army needs soldiers like you, not drivers, soldiers. She extended her hand. Welcome to the fight, Ranger candidate. Arya shook it, trying to keep her hands from trembling. Thank you, ma'am. Dismissed. She walked out of the TOC in a daze. The sun was setting now, orange light bleeding across the base. Soldiers were everywhere, Chowline PT Field motor pool. And for the first time, they weren't looking through her. They were looking at her. Banks jogged up. Davis, we're having a thing tonight. Echo 6, you're coming. I don't know if... You're coming. That's an order, he grinned. From a guy who's alive because of you. That night she sat in the rec tent with Echo 6. They told stories, drank near beer, laughed too loud. And for the first time since she'd arrived at FOB Sentinel, Arya Davis wasn't sitting 2 tables away. She was sitting with her brothers. Kowalski raised his can. To Davis, the driver who went to war. To Davis, they all shouted. She smiled. Not because of the praise, not because of the Bronze Star or the Ranger School slot, because she finally mattered. And that was worth more than all of it. The celebration lasted 2 hours before reality set in. Arya woke the next morning to reveille and the same canvas tent, but everything felt different. Her body ached, shoulders burning from the recoil hands blistered under the bandages the medic had wrapped last night. She flexed her fingers. They worked. That was enough. "Davis, you up?" Miller's voice outside the tent. "Yeah, I'm up." "Colonel wants you at 0700, battalion headquarters." Her stomach tightened. "What for?" "Didn't say, but half the base is talking about you, so I'm guessing it's not about vehicle maintenance." She dressed quickly, pulled her hair back tight. Checked her uniform twice in the mirror, a cracked piece of glass someone had duct-taped to a plywood board. The face looking back at her was the same. Same brown eyes. Same scar on her chin from falling off a horse when she was 14. But something behind the eyes had changed. Yesterday she'd killed 32 people. Yesterday she'd saved 12. The math didn't balance. It never would. Battalion headquarters was a squat concrete building near the command post surrounded by blast walls and sandbags. 2 sergeants stood outside smoking. They stopped talking when they saw her. "That's her," one said. "Damn, she's tiny." Arya kept walking. Let them talk. They'd been talking about her since yesterday anyway. Inside a specialist at the desk looked up. "Private Davis." "Yes." "Colonel Hendricks is expecting you. 3rd door on the left." She walked down the hallway, boots echoing on concrete. Voices leaked from behind closed doors. Radio chatter, phone calls, the constant machinery of war. She stopped at the 3rd door, knocked twice. "Enter." Colonel Hendricks sat behind her desk reading something on a laptop. She didn't look up immediately. "Close the door, Private." Arya closed it. "Sit." She sat. Hendricks finally looked at her, and her expression was unreadable. "How are your hands?" "Functional, ma'am." "That's not what I asked." "They hurt, ma'am, but they'll heal." Hendricks nodded slowly. "I've been reading the after-action reports from Echo 6. Do you know what Staff Sergeant Price wrote about you?" "No, ma'am." "He said you displayed tactical awareness beyond your rank and training. He said you identified the high ground, established a support by fire position, and suppressed a numerically superior enemy force with precision and discipline." She closed the laptop. "He also said you advanced on foot under fire to eliminate 5 enemy combatants at close range when they attempted to flank your position." Arya said nothing. That part was blurry in her memory, just instinct and adrenaline, and her father's voice saying, "Don't let them get behind you." "That's not driver behavior, Private. That's Ranger behavior, and it's creating a problem." "Ma'am, you're famous now. Every soldier on this base knows what you did. Half of them want to shake your hand. The other half want to know why a driver was better trained than they are." Hendricks leaned forward. "And higher command wants to know why I let a 22-year-old female private engage in direct combat without authorization." There it was. The court-martial Kowalski had joked about. "Ma'am, if I'm being charged..." "You're not being charged. You're being promoted." Arya blinked. "What?" "Specialist Davis effective immediately. And you're being transferred to Echo 6 as their vehicle gunner pending your Ranger School slot." Hendricks pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. "This is your new assignment. You report to Staff Sergeant Price at 0900, Congratulations. Arya stared at the folder. I don't understand. Yesterday you said I broke every regulation. You did. And you saved 12 lives doing it. The Army doesn't punish results specialists. It promotes them. Hendricks stood. But understand something. Yesterday, you were invisible. Today, you're not. And that comes with weight. People will expect things from you now. They'll watch everything you do. Some will want you to fail because it makes them feel better about themselves. Others will need you to succeed because it gives them hope. She walked to the window, looked out at the base. You proved you can shoot. Now you have to prove you can lead. Can you do that? Arya thought about Montana, about her father teaching her to fix a fence, saying, leadership's not about being the loudest. It's about being the one people trust when things go wrong. Yes, ma'am, I can. Good. Dismissed, specialist. Arya stood, picked up the folder, saluted. Hendricks returned it. One more thing, Davis. Ma'am, what you did yesterday. That kind of courage is rare. Don't waste it trying to prove yourself to people who don't matter. Save it for the moments that do. Yes, ma'am. She walked out of headquarters into the morning sun. The base was waking up soldiers jogging in formation vehicles, rumbling to life, the smell of diesel and coffee mixing in the dry air. She looked down at the folder in her hands. Specialist Davis. Gunner Echo 6. She'd wanted to matter. Now she did. And Colonel Hendricks was right, it had weight. Yo, Davis. She turned. Hernandez was jogging toward her, grinning. Heard you got promoted. Specialist, look at you. Just happened. Just happened, girl, you earned that. You earned all of it. He fell into step beside her. Price wants to see you at the motor pool. We're doing vehicle checks before the patrol briefing. I thought I wasn't supposed to report until 0900. Yeah, well, Price moves fast. You'll learn. Hernandez glanced at her. You nervous? Should I be? Nah. Well, maybe a little. Echo 6 is tight. We've been running together for 8 months. You're the first new person since Jackson got medevaced in June. But after yesterday, he shook his head. You're already family. Family. The word hit her harder than she expected. They reached the motor pool. Echo 6's vehicles were lined up 3 Humvees, 1 MRAP, all painted in desert tan and scarred from missions. Staff Sergeant Price stood by the lead Humvee with Kowalski and 2 other soldiers Arya recognized, but didn't know by name. Price saw her coming. Specialist Davis? Good. You're early. Sergeant Hernandez said you wanted to see me. I did. This is your vehicle now. He patted the hood of the second Humvee. You'll be running the 50 cal in the turret. Banks is your driver. Kowalski's team leader. You good with that? Yes, Sergeant. Good. Because we've got a patrol in 3 hours. Convoy escort to OP North. Should be routine, but after yesterday, nothing feels routine anymore. He looked at her directly. You scared? A little. Good. Scared keeps you sharp. Overconfident gets you killed. He pulled out a map, spread it on the hood. Routes 12 clicks north, then west, along the Ridge Road. We've been running it twice a week for 2 months, no contact. But intel says enemy activity's up since yesterday. They lost 32 fighters. They're gonna be pissed. Kowalski spoke up. They're also gonna be cautious. They don't know what hit them yesterday. Could have been air support artillery, a whole platoon. They don't know it was 1 specialist with a machine gun. Let's keep it that way, Price said. Davis, you're up in the turret, but you don't fire unless I give the order, or we're taking direct contact. Understood? Understood, Sergeant. Your job is eyes. Watch the ridge lines, watch the road, watch for anything that doesn't belong. You see something, you call it. Don't wait, don't second guess. Just call it. Yes, Sergeant. Banks walked over a stocky guy from Georgia with a shaved head and a tattoo of a bulldog on his forearm. Davis right. Yeah. I'm your driver, which means your ass is literally hanging over my head. So if you see an RPG, give me a heads up before you start shooting? Yeah. I'll do my best. He grinned. That's all I ask. You good with the 50? I've trained on it. Training's different from running it on patrol. It jams, you clear it fast. It overheats you, give it a break. It runs dry, you reload under fire while I'm driving 70 miles an hour over rocks. Think you can handle that? Arya met his eyes. I handled a 249 under fire yesterday. I can handle a 50. Banks's grin widened. Yeah, you can. All right, I like you. Let's not die today. Sounds good. The next 2 hours were a blur of preparation. Arya inspected the 50 cal, checked the feed tray, the bolt, the barrel. Loaded ammo cans. Tested the traverse and elevation. Banks watched her work. You're thorough. My dad taught me. Check everything twice. Smart man. He military. No, ranch foreman. But he treated equipment like it was gospel. It'll save your life if you respect it, kill you if you don't. He's not wrong. Banks climbed into the driver's seat, started the engine. It rumbled to life, deep and powerful. How's it feel? The engine, the turret. Arya climbed up, settled into the gunner's position. The turret was cramped, barely enough room to move. The 50 cal sat in front of her, heavy and lethal. She gripped the handle, swung it left, then right. Smooth, responsive. Feels good. Wait till we're moving. Whole different animal. At 1100 Echo 6 mounted up. 4 vehicles, 16 soldiers. Price's voice crackled over the radio. Echo 6 comms check. One by one, each vehicle responded. When it was Arya's turn, she keyed the mic. Echo 6-2, good copy. Roger. All vehicles, we're rolling in 5. Stay sharp, stay tight. Let's bring everyone home. Arya's heart was pounding. Not from fear, from anticipation. This was real. This was the mission. The convoy rolled out through the main gate. The guards waved them through, and suddenly they were outside the wire in the open desert where the rules changed, and every shadow could kill you. Banks drove smoothly, keeping pace with the lead vehicle. The road was rough, but he navigated it like he'd done it 1,000 times. Probably had. You good up there? He called up. I'm good. Let me know if you need anything. Water, ammo, a pep talk. I'll let you know. The landscape rolled past flat desert broken by rocky hills and dry riverbeds. The sun was brutal, turning the metal of the turret into an oven. Arya scanned the ridgelines, the road ahead, the compounds they passed. Civilians watched from doorways. Kids waved. An old man on a donkey stopped to let them pass. Normal. Everything looked normal. But Arya had learned yesterday that normal could explode into chaos in seconds. Echo 6, this is 6-1. I've got something. 9 o'clock ridgeline 300 meters. Price's voice. What are you seeing? Movement. 2, maybe 3 individuals. They ducked behind rocks when we came into view. Arya swung the 50 cal left, scanning the ridgeline. There, a flash of fabric. Someone moving. Echo 6-2. I've got eyes on it. Confirmed 2 individuals, possibly armed. Can't get a clear visual. All vehicles slow to 15. Stay alert. Davis, keep eyes on that ridge. If they raise a weapon, you light them up. Don't wait for permission. Roger that. Her finger rested on the trigger. Not pulling. Just ready. The figures moved again. One of them stood up, and she saw it. A phone. He was holding a phone, recording them. Echo 6, they're filming us. No weapons visible. Copy. Probably spotters. All vehicles maintain speed. Let's get past them. The convoy accelerated. The figures on the ridge watched them go, one of them still filming. Arya kept the 50 cal trained on them until they were out of range. Banks exhaled. That was fun. You think they were spotters? 100%. They'll call ahead, let someone know we're coming. Question is, does someone care enough to do something about it? They found out 6 clicks later. IED right side. The lead vehicle swerved hard. The explosion came a second later, a fountain of dirt and fire erupting from the roadside. The shockwave hit Arya's Humvee, rocking it sideways. Contact right, Price's voice sharp and controlled. All vehicles combat spacing, return fire. Arya swung the 50 cal toward the hillside, where the IED had been triggered. Muzzle flashes appeared, 5, 6, 7 of them. Enemy fighters opening up on the convoy. Davis, engage. She didn't hesitate. Squeezed the trigger. The 50 cal roared, bucking in her hands. Tracers streaked toward the hillside. She walked the fire across the positions, watching dirt and rock explode where the rounds hit. Good hits, keep firing. Banks was driving fast now, weaving to make them a harder target. Rounds pinged off the armor. One shattered the side mirror. They're trying to box us in, Kowalski shouted. Contact left, More muzzle flashes. More fighters. This wasn't a hasty ambush, this was planned. Arya traversed left, acquired targets, fired. The 50 cal was different from the saw, heavier, louder, more powerful. Each round hit like a hammer. She saw one fighter get hit and spin backward, saw another dive for cover. Echo 6, we need to push through, Price yelled. All vehicles follow me, combat speed. The convoy accelerated. Arya kept firing, suppressing the enemy positions as they sped past. Brass casings rained down into the Humvee. The barrel was glowing. And then they were through. The ambush fell behind them, gunfire fading. All vehicles status check. One by one they reported in. No casualties. Minor damage. They'd made it. Arya's hands were shaking. Adrenaline crash. She'd fired maybe 100 rounds in 30 seconds. You okay up there? Banks called. Yeah, I'm okay. You did good. Real good. Price's voice. Echo 6-2, good shooting. You kept them pinned while we pushed through. That's exactly what I needed. Thank you, Sergeant. But her hands wouldn't stop shaking. They reached OP North without further contact, delivered the supplies, turned around, headed back. The return trip was quiet. No ambushes, no IEDs, just the long desert road and the setting sun. When they rolled back through the gate at FOB Sentinel, Arya felt like she'd been gone for days instead of hours. She climbed out of the turret legs, wobbly. Banks clapped her on the shoulder. Welcome to Echo 6 Specialist. You're officially one of us now. That night, she sat alone outside her tent, cleaning the 50 cal by flashlight. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. The blisters from yesterday had opened again during the firefight. She wrapped them in fresh bandages. Footsteps approached. Kowalski sat down beside her. You did good today. Thank you, Sergeant. You know what the difference is between yesterday and today? What? Yesterday you were alone. Today you had a team. And that's what's going to keep you alive out here. Not courage, not skill. Team. She looked at him. Is that why you came over to tell me that? No. I came over to make sure you're okay. Because killing people, even when it's the right thing to do, it stays with you. And I've seen soldiers try to carry that weight alone. It breaks them. I'm not broken, Sergeant. I know. But you're also not invincible. And pretending you are, that's how you get broken. He stood up. You need to talk, you talk. To me, to Price, to the chaplain. Doesn't matter. Just don't carry it alone. Yes, Sergeant. He walked away, leaving her with the 50 cal and the stars and the weight of 32 bodies she'd put in the ground. She thought about her father, about Montana, about the life she'd left behind to become a soldier who killed people and saved people, and couldn't always tell which mattered more. But Kowalski was right. She wasn't alone anymore. And maybe that was enough. The attack came 3 days later, just before dawn. Arya woke to the impact of mortars hitting the perimeter, that distinctive crump, crump, crump that made your bones vibrate. She was on her feet before the alarm even sounded, pulling on her boots, grabbing her rifle, her vest, her helmet. All personnel, this is TOC. We are under attack. I repeat, we are under attack. Mount your assigned positions. She ran toward the motor pool through the chaos. Soldiers everywhere running to their posts. Another mortar hit the burn pit, sending flames shooting into the dark sky. The whole base lit up orange and red. Davis. Kowalski was running toward her. Echo 6 is rolling out enemy force, spotted 2 clicks south, moving toward the base. We're intercepting. I'm coming. No time to gear up, proper. Get in the truck. She sprinted to their Humvee. Banks was already in the driver's seat, engine running. She climbed into the turret, hands moving on muscle memory. Check the feed chamber, around traverse, left and right. We good? Banks yelled up. We're good. Price's voice cracked over the radio. Echo 6, move out. Rules of engagement are weapons free. Anything outside the wire is hostile. The convoy tore through the gate. 4 Humvees' emergency lights off, racing into the darkness. Arya's night vision turned the world green and grainy. She scanned ahead, heart pounding in her chest. TOC, this is Echo 6. We are 2 minutes from contact zone. Give me numbers. Echo 6 surveillance estimates 30 to 40 hostiles moving in combat formation. They've got RPGs, technical vehicles, and what looks like a mounted 50. They're coming hard. 40 fighters. Arya's hands tightened on the gun. Copy that. Echo 6 is engaging. They crested a rise and saw them, a line of vehicles and fighters moving through the desert headlights, off weapons visible even in the darkness. They hadn't expected the Americans to come meet them. That was their first mistake. All vehicles engage at will. Arya opened fire. The 50 cal lit up the night tracers streaming toward the enemy formation. She saw the lead technical take, hits its windshield, exploding. It swerved hard, flipped, rolled 3 times. All 4 Humvees were firing now. The enemy scattered, some diving behind rocks, others returning fire. Muzzle flashes everywhere, rounds pinging off armor. RPG! Someone screamed. Arya saw it, a fighter on one knee tube on his shoulder, aiming at Price's vehicle. She swung the 50 cal toward him, leading the target, compensating for Banks's speed. Her father's voice, "Don't aim where they are. Aim where they're going to be." She fired. 3 rounds. The fighter jerked backward, the RPG launching wild, spiraling into the empty desert and exploding harmlessly. Good kill, Davis. But there were too many of them. The enemy was regrouping, taking cover behind a rocky outcrop, concentrating their fire. Price's Humvee took an RPG hit to the front quarter panel. The explosion sent it spinning sideways. Echo 6-1 is hit. We're hit. Can you move? Negative, engines dead. We need extraction. Arya's mind flashed back to 3 days ago. Echo 6 pinned down. Outnumbered. Dying. Not again. Banks, get us to Price's vehicle. What? Do it now. Banks didn't argue. He yanked the wheel hard, accelerating toward the disabled Humvee. Arya kept firing, suppressing the enemy positions, trying to give Price's team time. They pulled alongside. Price and his 3-man team bailed out, returning fire as they moved. "Get in!" Kowalski screamed. "Move! Move! Move!" They piled into Arya's Humvee, 7 people in a vehicle meant for 5. Someone was bleeding. She could smell it. "Banks, get us out of here." He threw it in reverse tires, screaming. Arya traversed the 50 cal, still firing. The enemy was advancing now, emboldened, thinking they had the Americans retreating. That was their second mistake. "Echo 6-3, get a TOW on that outcrop," Price yelled. "Blow those bastards back to hell!" The third Humvee fired its TOW missile. The rocket streaked across the desert and slammed into the rocks where the enemy had concentrated. The explosion was massive fire, and debris and bodies flying through the air. The enemy advance broke, fighters running scattering, trying to get away from the American firepower. "All vehicles pursue, don't let them regroup." The convoy surged forward. Arya was firing continuously now, the barrel smoking brass raining down. She saw fighters dropping, saw vehicles burning, saw the enemy formation collapsing into chaos. And then she saw him. A fighter, maybe 50 meters away, lifting another RPG, aiming directly at her Humvee. Time slowed. She could see his face in the muzzle flash, young. Maybe her age, scared, but determined. She pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. Jam. "Guns down, I've got a jam." The fighter steadied his aim. Arya's hands moved without thinking. Pull the charging handle, check the chamber, clear the stoppage. Her father had made her do this drill 1,000 times with her, 308 blindfolded in the rain, until it was pure instinct. The fighter fired. Arya saw the rocket launch, saw the smoke trail, saw it coming straight at her. She got the gun back up, squeezed the trigger. The 50 cal roared. The fighter dropped. The RPG spiraled off course, missing them by 3 feet, exploding behind them. Banks was screaming something. Arya couldn't hear it over the ringing in her ears. "What? I said you just saved our lives again." The enemy was broken now, running in full retreat. Echo 6 pursued for another click. Then Price called it off. "All vehicles break contact. Return to base. We've done enough." They turned around, driving back past the burning vehicles and bodies scattered across the desert. The sun was starting to rise now, turning the sky purple and orange. Arya's hands were shaking again. Worse than before. She'd almost died. They'd all almost died. But they hadn't. Because she'd cleared that jam. Because she'd made that shot. Because she'd become exactly what the army needed her to be. When they rolled back through the gate, the whole base was waiting. The attack had been repelled, mortars silenced, perimeter secure. But Echo 6 had stopped the main assault force before it could even reach the wire. Colonel Hendricks was there. She walked directly to Arya's Humvee. "Specialist Davis." Arya climbed down from the turret legs, barely holding her. "Ma'am?" "Staff Sergeant Price tells me you cleared a weapons malfunction under fire while an RPG was in flight toward your position." "Yes, ma'am." "And then killed the shooter before the next round could be fired." "Yes, ma'am." Hendricks looked at her for a long moment. "You're either incredibly skilled or incredibly lucky." "Little bit of both, ma'am." "Good. Because luck runs out. Skill doesn't." She turned to Price. "Casualties. 1 wounded. Miller took shrapnel. He'll be fine. 0 KIA. And enemy. 37 confirmed. Maybe more. They're still counting bodies." Hendricks nodded slowly. "Get your team to medical. I want everyone checked. Then debriefing in 2 hours." "Yes, ma'am." She walked away, and Arya felt her legs finally give out. She sat down hard on the Humvee's bumper. Kowalski sat beside her. "You okay?" "I don't know." "That was close. Too close." "But you handled it. Cleared the jam, made the shot. Textbook. Didn't feel textbook. Felt like I was about to die. Welcome to combat. That feeling never goes away. You just get better at working through it. She looked at him. Does it get easier? No. It gets harder. Because every time you survive, you know you're using up your luck. And eventually everyone's luck runs out. He stood up. But not today. Today we won. Take the win, Davis. Medical cleared everyone except Miller, who had to get stitches in his shoulder. The debriefing lasted an hour. Price walking through every moment of the engagement. What went right, what went wrong, what they'd do different next time. When it was over, Arya walked back to her tent. She needed sleep, needed food, needed to stop her hands from shaking. But when she lay down on her cot, she couldn't close her eyes. Every time she did, she saw that RPG coming at her, saw the fighter's face, saw the moment between the jam and the fix when she thought it was over. Hey. She opened her eyes. Hernandez stood at the tent entrance. You need to eat something. I'm not hungry. I didn't ask if you were hungry. I said you need to eat. He came in, sat on the cot across from hers. You've been running on adrenaline for 3 days. You're gonna crash hard if you don't take care of yourself. I'm fine, Hernandez. You're not fine. Nobody's fine after what you just did. But you're still here, which means you get to decide how you handle it. He pulled out an MRE, tossed it to her. Eat, then sleep. Then we'll talk if you want to talk. She looked at the MRE. Chili Mac. Not terrible. Why are you being nice to me? Because you saved my life. Twice. And because you're my sister now. That's what Echo 6 is. A family. He stood up. Get some rest, specialist. We've got another patrol tomorrow. He left. Arya opened the MRE, forced herself to eat. The food tasted like cardboard, but he was right, she needed it. She managed 3 hours of sleep before the dreams started. The fighter with the RPG. Except in the dream, she didn't clear the jam in time. The rocket hit. Everyone died. She woke up gasping. It was 1400 hours. She'd slept through lunch. She got up, splashed water on her face from her canteen, changed into a clean uniform. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. Small victories. Outside the base had returned to its normal rhythm. Soldiers doing PT vehicles, getting maintenance, the constant background noise of generators and radio chatter. Davis. She turned. Banks was walking toward her with 2 cups of coffee. Figured you could use this? Thanks. They sat on the concrete barriers outside the motor pool. The coffee was terrible, burnt and bitter, but it was hot. Hell of a morning, Banks said. Yeah. You ever clear a malfunction that fast before? On the range, sure. Not with an RPG coming at me. Your hands moved like you'd done it 1,000,000 times. My dad made me practice, over and over, said muscle memory would save my life someday. She took a sip of coffee. Guess he was right. He taught you well. You should call him, let him know you're okay. Can't. No personal calls until next week's phone rotation. Well, when you can tell him his daughter's a badass, she smiled. First time all day. I will. They sat in silence for a while, drinking their terrible coffee, watching the base move around them. Can I ask you something? Arya said. Shoot. Does it ever feel normal? The killing. Banks was quiet for a moment. No. And if it does, that's when you need to worry. That's when you're not a soldier anymore. You're something else. He looked at her. But you're doing the right thing. Those fighters were coming to kill us, to kill everyone on this base. You stopped them. That's not murder. That's protection. That's the job. Doesn't make it easier. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be necessary. There's a difference. She thought about that. Necessary. Not easy. Just necessary. Thanks, Banks. Anytime. Now finish your coffee. Price wants to do vehicle maintenance before dinner, and you know how he gets if the 50's not spotless. They spent the next 2 hours cleaning weapons, checking equipment, prepping for the next mission. The work was mindless, repetitive grounding. Arya needed that, needed something normal. At dinner, Echo 6 sat together like always. Miller was there, arm in a sling, already telling war stories. I'm not saying I took the hit for you guys, but I definitely took the hit for you guys. You caught shrapnel because you were standing in the wrong place, Kowalski said. Details. Point is, I'm wounded in action now. That's another ribbon. They all laughed, even Arya. Price stood up, tapped his cup with a fork. The table went quiet. I want to say something. This morning we went up against 40 hostiles. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and one of our vehicles got disabled. By all accounts, we should have taken casualties, but we didn't. You know why? He looked around the table. Because every single one of you did your job. Banks drove like a demon. Kowalski kept comms clear. Miller took a hit and kept fighting. And Davis... He looked directly at her. Davis cleared a malfunction under fire and made an impossible shot that saved all our lives. Everyone at the table turned to look at her. That's twice now she's pulled our asses out of the fire. So I'm recommending her for the Army Commendation Medal with Valor. And I'm recommending her for promotion to corporal. The table erupted. Everyone talking at once, clapping her on the back. Congratulating her. Arya felt her face burning. I was just doing my job, Sergeant. Yeah, well, your job is keeping us alive, and you're damn good at it. He raised his cup. To Davis, the best gunner Echo 6 has ever had. To Davis. They drank. They ate. They told stories and laughed too loud, and pretended for a few hours that they weren't living in a war zone where death could come at any moment. But underneath it all, Arya felt the weight settling deeper into her bones. 32 bodies 3 days ago. 37 more this morning. 69 people dead because she'd pulled a trigger, Necessary Banks had said. Not easy, just necessary. She hoped he was right. That night she lay on her cot, staring at the tent ceiling. Sleep wasn't coming. The dreams were waiting. She thought about her father. About Montana. About the girl she'd been 6 months ago when she'd arrived at FOB Sentinel, invisible, overlooked, desperate to matter. Now she mattered. Everyone knew her name. Everyone respected her. But the cost of mattering was measured in bodies. She heard footsteps outside. A moment later, Kowalski appeared at the tent entrance. You awake? Yeah. Can't sleep. No. He came in, sat down. I've been thinking about what I said to you yesterday, about carrying weight, about not doing it alone. I remember. I want you to understand something. What you're feeling right now. That weight, that doubt, that's not weakness. That's humanity. The day you stop feeling it is the day you need to put down the gun and walk away. He looked at her. You're a good soldier, Davis. But more than that, you're a good person. Don't lose that. How do I not lose it when I've killed 69 people in 3 days? You remember why you killed them. Not because you wanted to, because you had to save your brothers, to protect this base, to stop people who wanted to hurt us. He stood up. And you keep being the person who gives a damn about those 69 lives, because the day you stop caring is the day you become like them. He left her with that thought. She lay back down, closed her eyes, and this time when the dreams came, she didn't fight them. She let them play out, saw the faces, counted the bodies, felt the weight. Because Kowalski was right. Caring was what separated her from the people she'd killed. And as long as she cared, she was still herself. Still the girl from Montana who'd wanted to matter. Now she mattered more than she'd ever imagined. And she was learning that mattering came with a price she'd be paying for the rest of her life. The chaplain found her 2 days later. Arya was cleaning the 50 cal for the 3rd time that morning when Chaplain Rivera walked up carrying 2 bottles of water. She was a small woman, maybe 40, with kind eyes, and the kind of calm that made you think she'd seen worse things than you had. Specialist Davis. Ma'am. It's Chaplain, not ma'am. And I'm not here officially. I'm here because Staff Sergeant Price asked me to check on you. Arya kept cleaning. I'm fine. That's what everyone says, right up until they're not. Rivera sat down on the barrier next to her, opened one of the water bottles, and handed it over. Drink! You look dehydrated. Arya took it. She was thirsty. She'd forgotten to eat breakfast. Again. How much sleep are you getting? Rivera asked. Enough. That's not an answer. 3, maybe 4 hours. And the rest of the time, I'm awake. Thinking about what you've done. It wasn't a question. Arya stopped cleaning, looked at the chaplain. How'd you know? Because I've had this conversation with 100 soldiers. The good ones always have trouble sleeping after their first real combat. The ones who sleep fine. Those are the ones I worry about. Rivera took a sip of her water. You want to talk about it? Not really. Fair enough, but I'm going to say something anyway, and you can take it or leave it. She turned to face Arya directly. 69 people dead doesn't make you a killer. It makes you a soldier who protected her family. There's a difference, and you need to know that difference before it eats you alive. How do you know how many? Everyone on this base knows. You're famous, Davis. The driver who became a warrior. The girl who saved Echo 6. Twice. Rivera smiled gently. But fame doesn't help you sleep at night, does it? No. That's because you're carrying weight that doesn't belong to you. Those 69 people, they made choices. They picked up weapons. They came to kill Americans. You didn't make them do that. You just stopped them. Stopping them meant killing them. Yes, and that's the burden soldiers carry. But it's not the same as murder, and you need to understand that. Murder is taking life for no reason. What you did, that's war. It's ugly, it's brutal, and it's necessary. Rivera stood up. I'm here every day at 1600 hours. If you need to talk, you talk. If you don't, that's okay too. But don't carry this alone. That's an order from God, not the army. She walked away, leaving Arya with her water and her thoughts, and the weight that wouldn't lift. That afternoon, Colonel Hendricks called her to headquarters again. Specialist Davis reporting as ordered, ma'am. Hendricks looked up from her desk. At ease. Sit down. Arya sat. Your Ranger School date came through. You ship out in 3 weeks. Hendricks slid a packet across the desk. This is your pre-assignment paperwork. You'll need to complete a PT test, medical screening, and psychological evaluation before you go. Psychological evaluation. Standard procedure for anyone entering Ranger training. They want to make sure you're mentally prepared for what's coming. Hendricks leaned back in her chair. How are you doing, Specialist? And I want a real answer, not a soldier answer. Arya hesitated. I'm managing, ma'am. That's not what I asked. I'm processing. Processing 69 kills in 5 days. Yes, ma'am. Hendricks was quiet for a moment. When I was a lieutenant, I called in an airstrike that killed 43 enemy combatants. Direct hit. Compound leveled. I got a Bronze Star for it. She looked at Arya. I didn't sleep for 2 months. Kept seeing that building explode. Kept wondering if there were civilians inside. Kept questioning every decision I'd made that led to that moment. What helped? Time. Therapy. And understanding that I didn't cause that fight, I just ended it. The enemy put themselves in that compound. They chose to fire on American forces. I made the call that saved my soldiers." She stood up, walked to the window. "You're going to carry those 69 deaths for the rest of your life, Davis, but you need to decide how you carry them, as guilt or as proof that you'll do whatever it takes to protect your family. What if it's both? Then you're human, and that's exactly what the Army needs." She turned back. "You're going to Ranger School. You're going to become one of the best soldiers this Army has ever seen. But first you need to make peace with who you've become. Can you do that?" Arya thought about Montana, about her father teaching her to shoot, saying, "Power without responsibility is tyranny. Responsibility without power is slavery. You need both to be free." She'd never understood what he meant until now. She had the power. She'd proven that. But the responsibility was crushing her. "I can try, ma'am. That's all I'm asking." Dismissed. Arya walked out into the afternoon heat. 3 weeks until Ranger School. 3 weeks to figure out how to sleep again. She went back to the motor pool. Banks was there working on the Humvee's transmission. "Hey, Specialist, heard you're leaving us." 3 weeks. Damn, we're gonna miss you." He wiped his hands on a rag. "You scared? Terrified?" "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He looked at her. "You know what Ranger School is, right? It's not about making you tougher. You're already tough. It's about proving to yourself that you can suffer through anything and still complete the mission. That's what Rangers do. They suffer better than everyone else." "That's a terrible sales pitch." Banks laughed. "Yeah, well, nobody said it was fun. But you'll come out the other side knowing exactly what you're made of. And from what I've seen, you're made of something most people don't have." "What's that? Heart. Real, genuine, give-a-damn heart. You don't fight because you love killing. You fight because you love the people you're protecting. That's rare, Davis. Don't lose it." That night at dinner, Echo 6 was subdued. Word had spread about Arya leaving. 3 weeks, Miller said. "That's barely enough time to properly corrupt you." "I think she's already corrupted," Hernandez said. "She's killed more enemy than all of us combined." "Not a competition," Kowalski said quietly. "I know. I'm just saying she's earned her place 10 times over." Price stood up. "Before we eat, I want to say something. Davis is leaving us for Ranger School. That's a huge opportunity, and she's earned it. But that means Echo 6 needs a new gunner. And I want everyone here to understand something: Davis isn't replaceable. What she did, what she's done for this team, that's once-in-a-career stuff. We got lucky." He looked at Arya. "And we're grateful. Here's to Davis." Banks raised his cup. "May Ranger School know what the hell they're getting into." They all drank. They ate. But underneath the celebration, Arya felt something shifting. She was leaving. These people who'd become her family, she was leaving them. After dinner, Kowalski pulled her aside. "Walk with me." They walked the perimeter of the base, past the guard towers and wire fences, and the endless desert beyond. "You ready for this?" he asked. "I don't know." That's the right answer. Anyone who says they're ready for Ranger School is lying. He stopped walking, turned to face her. "I need to tell you something. When you first got here, I didn't think much of you. Small Quiet didn't talk back. I figured you'd do your year and go home and that would be it." "I know. But I was wrong. Dead wrong. You're one of the best soldiers I've ever served with, and I've been doing this for 12 years. He held out his hand. "It's been an honor, Specialist Davis." She shook it. His grip was firm, respectful. "The honor was mine, Sergeant." They walked back in silence. When they reached the motor pool, Kowalski stopped. "One more thing. When you're at Ranger School, when it gets hard, and it will get hard, remember why you're doing this. Not for the tab, not for the respect. but because you're capable of more than anyone ever gave you credit for, including yourself. Yes, Sergeant. He left her there. She stood alone in the dark, looking at her Humvee, at the 50 cal she'd fired so many times at the vehicle that had become her home for the past 3 weeks. 3 weeks. That's all it had been since she'd driven into that ambush. 3 weeks since she'd been invisible. 3 weeks since her life had changed forever. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of patrols and training and preparing to leave. Echo 6 ran 6 more missions. No contact on any of them. The enemy had gone quiet after the massacre at the base perimeter. 40 hostiles dead in one morning had sent a message attacking FOB Sentinel was suicide. But the quiet made Arya nervous. In war, silence was never peaceful. It was just the pause before the next storm. 5 days before she was scheduled to leave, the storm arrived. It started with intelligence. A high-value target, an enemy commander responsible for the attack on the base, was holed up in a compound 15 clicks south. Delta Force was supposed to hit it, but they were delayed. Command wanted Echo 6 to conduct surveillance until the operators arrived. Simple mission, Price said at the briefing. We set up observation posts on the ridgeline, watch the compound, report enemy movement. We do not engage unless fired upon. This is eyes only. Everyone clear. Everyone nodded. They rolled out at 0200, driving dark with night vision. Arya was in her usual position, turret gunner Banks, driving Kowalski, running comms. The ride was tense. They all knew this wasn't going to be simple. They reached the ridgeline at 0330. The compound sat in the valley below a cluster of mud brick buildings surrounded by walls. Lights were on inside, movement visible through windows. Echo 6 is in position, Price reported. We've got eyes on the target compound. Approximately 15 to 20 individuals visible. No heavy weapons observed. Copy, Echo 6. Maintain position. Delta is inbound ETA 90 minutes. 90 minutes. An hour and a half of sitting and watching. Arya scanned the compound through her optics. She could see men moving around carrying weapons, talking. Normal pre-dawn activity. They didn't know they were being watched. Davis, you see anything? Kowalski asked. Negative. Just personnel moving around. Stay sharp. Intel says this guy's paranoid. He might have sentries we haven't spotted yet. She kept scanning. The night was cold, the wind cutting across the ridge. Her hands were steady on the gun. 20 minutes passed. 30. And then everything went wrong. Contact, we've got contact. The transmission came from Echo 6-3, the vehicle on the far side of the ridge. Ambush, we're taking fire from multiple positions. Gunfire erupted, tracers streaking across the valley. The compound below exploded with activity fighters pouring out of buildings, grabbing weapons, running to pre-positioned fighting positions. It's a trap, Price yelled. They knew we were coming. All vehicles combat positions. Arya swung the 50 cal toward the compound as muzzle flashes appeared everywhere. The enemy wasn't holed up waiting for Delta. They were ready for Echo 6. Engage, engage! She opened fire. The 50 cal roared, hammering rounds into the compound walls. She saw fighters dropping, saw others diving for cover. But there were so many of them. 20 had turned into 40, then 60. They'd been hiding, waiting. Echo 6-3 is disabled engines hit. Echo 6-4, get to their position and extract them. Banks was already moving, driving toward the disabled vehicle under heavy fire. Rounds pinged off their armor. The windshield cracked. Arya kept firing, trying to suppress the enemy positions long enough for the extraction. They reached Echo 6-3. 4 soldiers bailed out, 2 of them wounded, dragging each other toward Arya's Humvee. "Get them in! Get them in!" They piled into the vehicle. 11 people now crammed into a space meant for 5. Someone was screaming. Blood everywhere. "Banks, go, go." He floored it, but the enemy had anticipated their escape route. An RPG streaked across the valley, impacted 10 feet in front of them. The explosion rocked the Humvee. Banks swerved, but another RPG hit behind them, bracketing their position. "They're zeroing us in," Kowalski yelled. Arya saw it, a fighter on a rooftop RPG on his shoulder, aiming directly at them. She swung the 50 cal toward him, but her angle was wrong. The turret couldn't traverse far enough. "Banks, hard right." He yanked the wheel. The Humvee lurched sideways, giving her the angle she needed. She fired. The fighter dropped the RPG, falling from his hands, clattering off the roof. But more were coming. The entire compound was awake now, every fighter pouring fire toward Echo 6. "We need air support," Price screamed into the radio. "We are danger close and taking heavy fire. Request immediate CAS." "Echo 6 CAS is 15 minutes out. Can you hold 15 minutes? A lifetime in combat." "We'll hold," Price said. "We don't have a choice." Arya kept firing. The barrel was glowing red again, heat washing over her face. Her hands were burning. She didn't care. 2 more RPGs launched. 1 missed. The other hit Echo 6-2, the vehicle behind them. The explosion was massive ammunition cooking off flames, shooting into the sky. "Echo 6-2 is hit, vehicle destroyed. Survivors, silence on the radio. Echo 6-2 report." Nothing. Arya felt her chest tighten. 4 soldiers in that vehicle. 4 people she'd eaten with. Trained with, laughed with. Gone. "All remaining vehicles fall back to the rally point. We can't hold this position." Banks threw the Humvee into reverse, driving backward, while Arya kept firing. The enemy was pursuing now, emboldened, thinking they'd won. They hadn't. Arya traversed the gun left and right, engaging every target she could acquire. She wasn't thinking anymore, wasn't counting rounds or conserving ammunition. She was just fighting, keeping her family alive long enough for the birds to arrive. "Echo 6, be advised, TAS is 5 minutes out. Mark your position with IR strobes." "Roger, marking now." Arya saw the IR strobes activate on each vehicle, invisible to the naked eye, but bright as day through night vision. The enemy couldn't see them, but the pilots could. "Echo 6, this is Reaper 1. I've got your position marked. Going hot in 3, 2, 1. The sky opened up. The A-10 came in low and fast, its GAU-8 cannon roaring like the voice of God. The sound was unmistakable. Bert! As 30mm rounds tore into the compound at 70 rounds per second. Buildings exploded, vehicles disintegrated, enemy fighters disappeared in clouds of dust and fire. The A-10 made 3 passes, each one more devastating than the last. When it finally pulled up, the compound was gone. Just fire and smoke and silence. "Echo 6, this is Reaper 1. Target destroyed. You're clear to extract." "Roger, Reaper 1. Thank you for the save." "Anytime, Army. Stay safe down there." The convoy limped back to base at dawn. 3 vehicles left out of 4. 11 survivors out of 16. 4 soldiers dead. Arya climbed out of the turret and immediately vomited. Her hands were shaking so badly she couldn't grip the rail. Banks had to help her down. "Easy, easy, I got you." She collapsed against the Humvee, gasping. The sun was rising, turning everything orange and red, like the fire, like the blood. "I couldn't save them," she whispered. Save who? Echo 6-2. I couldn't. They were gone before you could do anything. RPG hit the ammo. Nothing survives that. I should have seen it coming. Should have warned them. Banks grabbed her shoulders, made her look at him. Listen to me. You saved 9 people tonight. 9. The 4 from Echo 6-3 plus all of us in this vehicle. You kept that gun running for 20 minutes straight while we extracted under fire. You killed that RPG gunner who would have taken us all out. You did everything right. It doesn't feel right. It never does. But you're alive. We're alive. And that's because of you. Colonel Hendricks was waiting at the motor pool. Her face was grim. Casualty report. Price stepped forward. 4 KIA, ma'am. Corporal Jennings, Specialist Rodriguez, Private Thompson, Private Vickers. 3 WIA, non-critical. Hendricks closed her eyes briefly. And the HVT, confirmed killed in the airstrike, along with approximately 50 enemy combatants. At what cost? 4 of my soldiers, ma'am. The weight of those words hung in the air. 4 lives, 4 families who would get notification letters, 4 flag-draped coffins. Hendricks looked at Echo 6, dirty, bleeding, exhausted. You walked into a trap and fought your way out. That takes courage, but it doesn't make this hurt less. She straightened. Get your people to medical. I'll handle the notifications. Debriefing at 1400 hours. She walked away, and Echo 6 stood there in the morning sun trying to process what had just happened. Kowalski spoke first. We need to take care of each other today. Check on your buddies. Don't be alone. We lost 4 brothers, and that's going to hit everyone different. But we're still a team, and teams stick together. Clear. Clear, Sergeant. They dispersed slowly, nobody wanting to be the first to leave, but nobody wanting to stay either. The Humvee where 4 soldiers had died was still smoking in the distance, a blackened hull that used to be their home. Arya walked to her tent and sat on her cot. The sun was fully up now, bright and harsh. She could hear the base coming to life, reveille formations, the normal rhythm of military life continuing, despite 4 new names added to the memorial wall. She thought about her father, about what he'd say if he could see her now, covered in blood that wasn't hers, hands shaking from firing a machine gun for 20 straight minutes, eyes hollow from watching people die. Would he be proud? Would he understand? She didn't know. 3 days later, they held the memorial service. The whole base attended. 4 sets of boots, rifles, and helmets arranged in formation. 4 names read aloud. 4 moments of silence that felt like hours. Arya stood with Echo 6 at attention, tears running down her face. She didn't wipe them away. Nobody did. Crying wasn't weakness here. It was respect. After the service, Price pulled her aside. Your transport to Ranger School leaves tomorrow morning. I know. You still want to go? She looked at him. Do you think I should? I think you've earned it 10 times over. But I also think you've been through hell this month, and Ranger School is just going to put you through more hell. So the question isn't whether you should go. It's whether you can handle it mentally. Could she? After everything she'd seen, everything she'd done, could she handle 2 more months of suffering? She thought about Jennings, Rodriguez, Thompson, Vickers, 4 soldiers who'd never get the chance to go to Ranger School. 4 soldiers who'd died fighting beside her. I can handle it, she said, for them. Price nodded. Then go earn that tab specialist. Make us proud. That night, Echo 6 threw her an informal goodbye. No alcohol, no celebration. Just soldiers sitting together telling stories about the people they'd lost and the battles they'd survived. Kowalski raised his cup of coffee. To Davis, who came here as a driver and leaves as a warrior. Ranger School doesn't know what's about to hit them. To Davis, they all said quietly. She looked around the table at these people who'd become her family. Banks, Hernandez, Miller, Kowalski, Price, and the empty chairs where Jennings and Rodriguez used to sit. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for seeing me when nobody else did, for trusting me when I didn't trust myself, for being the family I needed." "We're still your family," Banks said. "Distance doesn't change that. You go be a ranger, but you're always Echo 6. She nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The next morning, she loaded her gear into a transport truck. The sun was just coming up, and the base was quiet. She took one last look at FOB Sentinel, the motor pool, the guard towers, the mess hall, all the places that had become home. "You ready?" She turned. Kowalski stood there, hands in his pockets. "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good." He pulled something from his pocket, handed it to her. It was a challenge coin, Echo 6's unit coin, worn and scratched from years of use. "That's mine. From my first deployment. I want you to have it." "Sergeant, I can't." "You can and you will. When Ranger School gets hard, when you want to quit, you look at that coin and remember you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for all of us. For Echo 6. She closed her hand around the coin, feeling the weight of it. "Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you, Davis. For everything." He saluted her. She returned it. Then he walked away, and she climbed into the truck. As they drove through the gate, she looked back one last time. The base was waking up soldiers doing PT vehicles, moving life continuing. She was leaving behind 69 confirmed kills, 4 dead teammates, and the weight of a war she'd never asked to fight. But she was also leaving behind the girl who'd been invisible, and becoming someone who couldn't be ignored. The truck turned onto the highway, and FOB Sentinel disappeared behind them. Arya Davis, specialist, U.S. Army former driver turned gunner turned warrior, was on her way to Ranger School. And she was going to earn that tab. Not for herself. For Echo 6. For the family that had given her everything. Fort Benning, Georgia, felt like a different planet. The transport dropped Arya off at 0600 in front of a concrete building with a sign that read, Ranger Training Brigade. No trees, no mountains, just flat Georgia pine forest and red clay dirt, and the kind of humidity that made Montana feel like a distant dream. She grabbed her duffel, walked through the door, and immediately got screamed at by a ranger instructor whose name tape read Carver. "You're late." She checked her watch. She was 15 minutes early. "Ranger candidates are never early enough. Drop your gear and give me 20. She dropped. Did 20 push-ups. Perfect form like her father had taught her. "Get up formations in 10 minutes, move." She grabbed her gear and ran to where other candidates were assembling. 30 soldiers, all shapes and sizes, all looking nervous. Most of them were men. 3 were women. Everyone was trying not to make eye contact with the instructors prowling around like predators. An older instructor named tape Valdez walked to the front. His voice carried without yelling. "Welcome to Ranger School. Some of you think you earned the right to be here. You didn't. You earned the chance to prove you belong here. And 90% of you will fail." He let that sink in. This isn't about being strong. It's not about being fast. It's about being too stubborn to quit when everything in your body is screaming at you to stop. Can you suffer better than the person next to you? That's the only question that matters. Arya thought about Echo 6, about Kowalski's coin in her pocket, about 4 names on a memorial wall. She could suffer. She'd already proven that. Strip down to PT gear. You've got 3 minutes. Move. The first 2 weeks were hell. They called it RAP Week Ranger Assessment Phase. 12-mile ruck marches, water confidence tests, combat water survival, land navigation, all on 3 hours of sleep and 1 meal a day. Arya's body screamed at her constantly. Her feet blistered. Her shoulders bled from the ruck straps. Her hands, still healing from the burns, opened up again. She didn't quit. On day 5, a male candidate twice her size collapsed during a ruck march. The instructors descended on him like wolves. "You quitting on me, candidate?" "No, sergeant." "Then get up." He couldn't. His legs were gone. They pulled him out, put him in a truck. Arya watched him go, saw the shame on his face. She kept marching. On day 8, during water confidence, they bound her hands and feet and threw her in a pool. She had to swim to the other side underwater without panicking. The first time she surfaced halfway across, gasping. Failed. Again. She went under again. This time she thought about Montana. About swimming in the cold rivers with her father, him teaching her to control her breath, to trust the water instead of fighting it. She made it across. Pass. Next candidate. On day 12, they did land navigation at night. Rain pouring down, map-soaked, visibility 0. She had to find 5 points scattered across 20 square miles of forest. No GPS, just a compass and a pace count. She found all 5. 3 other candidates quit that night, just walked up to the instructors and said, "I'm done." Arya kept going. Ray-P week ended with 18 candidates left out of 30. The 3 women were still there, including Arya. The instructors lined them up. Valdez walked down the line looking at each of them. "You survived Ray-P week. Congratulations. That was the easy part." Someone groaned. The instructors smiled. "Welcome to the Derby phase. This is where we teach you what it means to be a ranger." The Derby phase was worse. They slept 2 hours a night if they were lucky, ate 1 MRE a day, ran patrol missions through the swamps and forests carrying full combat loads, executing ambushes and raids and reconnaissance operations. If you failed a patrol, you had to do it again. And again. Until you got it right or quit. Arya failed her first patrol. She was the patrol leader responsible for navigating to an objective and conducting a raid. She made a wrong turn, got the squad lost, missed the time window. The ranger instructor, a hard-eyed staff sergeant named Briggs, pulled her aside after. "What happened?" "I misread the terrain, sergeant. Thought the river bent east. It bent west. And I didn't confirm with my navigator. I assumed I was right." "Assumptions get rangers killed. You're doing it again tomorrow. Don't fail twice." She didn't. The second time she confirmed every decision with her team, trusted her navigator, stayed on pace. They hit the objective on time, executed the raid, exfiltrated cleanly. Briggs pulled her aside again. "Better. You learned. That's what I want to see." "Thank you, Sergeant." "Don't thank me yet. You've got 30 more patrols to pass." She passed them all. One by one, night after night, she led patrols through mud and rain and exhaustion so deep it felt like drowning. Other candidates quit 6 more in Derby phase. But Arya kept going. Because every time she wanted to quit, she felt Kowalski's coin in her pocket. Felt the weight of Echo 6 depending on her. Felt Jennings, Rodriguez, Thompson, and Vickers watching from wherever soldiers went when they died. She couldn't quit on them. Mountain phase came next. They flew to Dahlonega, Georgia, where the terrain turned vertical. Cliffs. Rappelling. Climbing with full gear. Patrols at altitude where the air was thin and your lungs burned with every breath. Arya loved it. Montana had mountains. Montana had cold air and steep climbs and terrain that would kill you if you weren't careful. This felt like home. On the 3rd day of mountain phase, they did a cliff assault. Candidates had to climb 60 feet of rock face, then immediately assault a bunker at the top while under simulated fire. Half the candidates couldn't make the climb. Their arms gave out. Their legs cramped. They hung on the rope, defeated. Arya made it look easy. She'd been climbing rocks since she was 8 years old, following her father up the cliffs near their ranch. Her hands knew what to do. Her body remembered. She reached the top, dropped her rope, grabbed her rifle, and led the assault on the bunker. Clean, fast textbook. Briggs was waiting at the bottom when she rappelled down. "Where'd you learn to climb like that?" "Montana, Sergeant. Grew up on a ranch." "Shows? You're a natural?" He made a mark on his clipboard. "Keep this up. You're gonna graduate top of your class." She didn't care about being top of the class. She just wanted to finish. Florida phase was the final test. They called it swamp phase for a reason. Waist-deep water alligators, snakes, mosquitoes that ate you alive. Patrols lasted 36 hours straight with no sleep. Candidates were hallucinating from exhaustion, seeing things that weren't there, talking to people who didn't exist. Arya hallucinated her father. She was on her third sleepless night slogging through a swamp at 0300 when she saw him standing on the bank. Clear as day. Wearing his ranch jacket, his old Stetson, that smile he always had when he was proud of her. "Hey, baby girl." She stopped walking. The candidate behind her bumped into her. "You okay?" She blinked. Her father was gone. Just trees and darkness. "Yeah, I'm okay." But her voice was shaking. That night she almost quit. Not because of the physical pain, she could handle that, but because the mental exhaustion was breaking her down. She couldn't think straight. Couldn't remember why she was here. Couldn't remember why any of this mattered. She sat in the mud during a security halt, head in her hands, ready to walk up to Briggs and say the words, "I quit." Then she felt the coin in her pocket. Kowalski's coin. Echo 6's coin. She pulled it out, looked at it by the light of her red lens flashlight. Scratched and worn, but still solid. Still real. Banks's voice in her head, "You're doing this for all of us." She put the coin back. Stood up. Kept moving. 2 days later, they finished the final patrol. 61 days of ranger school. 3 phases. Hundreds of patrols. Thousands of miles. And out of 30 candidates who started, only 9 remained. 3 men. 6 women had started. Only 2 were left Arya, and a tough-as-nails sergeant from Texas named Chen. The instructors lined them up one last time. Valdez walked down the line, stopped in front of each candidate. When he got to Arya, he looked her in the eye. "Specialist Davis, you came here from combat. 69 confirmed kills, Bronze Star, ARCOM with valor. You could have coasted on your reputation. Instead, you outworked everyone. You led more successful patrols than anyone in your class. You never quit, never complained, never made excuses." He held out his hand. "You earned this." She shook it. His grip was iron. Was, "Welcome to the Ranger Regiment, Davis." The graduation ceremony was small. 9 candidates standing in formation. 9 tan berets waiting on a table. 9 ranger tabs ready to be sewn onto uniforms. Arya stood at attention while they pinned the tab on her shoulder. It was just a piece of cloth, but it weighed more than anything she'd ever carried. She thought about Phobie Sentinel, about Echo 6, about the girl who'd been invisible for 6 months until she drove into hell and saved 12 lives. That girl was gone. In her place stood a ranger. After the ceremony, she called FOB Sentinel on the satellite phone. It took 20 minutes to get through. When Kowalski finally answered, she could hear the smile in his voice. "Davis, Tell me you got that tab. I got it, Sergeant. Damn right you did. How was it? Hardest thing I've ever done. Good. That means it worked. He paused. We're proud of you, kid. Whole team is. When you coming back? I don't know yet. They're assigning me to a Ranger battalion. Probably won't be back to Sentinel. That's okay. You've got bigger things ahead of you. Just don't forget where you came from. Never, Sergeant. Echo 6 for life. Echo 6 for life. Stay safe out there, Ranger. The line went dead. She stood there holding the phone, feeling the weight of everything she'd been through. 6 months ago, she'd been a driver. Now she was a Ranger. Combat veteran. Warrior. But underneath all of that, she was still Arya Davis from Montana. Still the girl whose father had taught her to shoot and climb and never quit. Still the soldier who cared more about her family than her own life. That would never change. 2 weeks later, she reported to her new unit 3rd Ranger Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment, the most elite light infantry unit in the world. She walked into the headquarters building wearing her tan beret and her Ranger tab, and for the first time in her military career, nobody looked at her like she didn't belong. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, reviewed her file while she stood at attention in his office. Specialist Davis, quite a record. Bronze Star, ARCOM with Valor, 69 confirmed kills in 5 days. Top graduate of your Ranger class. He looked up. You're 22 years old. Yes, sir. When I was 22, I was a butterbar trying not to get my platoon killed. You're already a proven combat leader. He closed the file. I'm assigning you to Alpha Company 1st Platoon. Your platoon sergeant is Master Sergeant Rivera, no relation to the chaplain. He's been a Ranger for 16 years. Learn from him, and welcome to the regiment. Thank you, sir. She walked out of his office and found her platoon in the company area. 30 Rangers, all experienced, all watching her with the kind of skepticism that came from seeing too many new guys fail. Master Sergeant Rivera was a stocky Puerto Rican with gray in his beard and eyes that had seen everything. He looked her up and down. You're Davis? Yes, Sergeant. Heard about you. FOB Sentinel. 69 kills. Saved a whole platoon by yourself. I had help, Sergeant. Don't be humble. Humble gets you ignored in the Ranger Regiment. He raised his voice so the whole platoon could hear. This is Specialist Davis. She's our new saw gunner. She earned her tab at the top of her class, and she's got more combat experience than half of you. Anyone got a problem with that? Silence. Good. Davis, you're with 1st Squad. Staff Sergeant Park is your team leader. Go introduce yourself. She found 1st Squad cleaning weapons in the armory. Park was a wiry Korean-American with quick hands and a faster mouth. So you're the famous driver. Banks told me about you. You know Banks. We went through selection together. He's a good dude. Says you're the best gunner he ever worked with. He's exaggerating. Banks doesn't exaggerate. If he says you're good, you're good. Park handed her an M249. This is yours now. You'll carry it on every mission. 27 pounds plus ammo. Think you can handle it. She took the saw, checked the chamber. Inspected the feed tray. Everything was perfect. Rangers took care of their weapons. I can handle it. We'll see. We deploy in 3 weeks. Yemen. Direct action missions against high-value targets. It's going to be hot, fast, and violent. You ready for that? She thought about FOB Sentinel, about driving into ambushes and clearing malfunctions under fire and watching friends die. She thought about Ranger School and 61 days of suffering just to earn the right to be here. I'm ready. Park smiled. Yeah, I think you are. 3 weeks later, they deployed. Yemen was everything Park said it would be: hot, fast, violent. They ran 12 missions in 30 days, raids on compounds, direct action against terrorist leaders, firefights in urban terrain where the enemy could be anyone. Arya carried her saw through all of it. She was the base of fire, the one who laid down suppression while assaulters cleared rooms. She was the one who held the line when things went wrong. On their 8th mission, they walked into an ambush. 20 Rangers against 60 fighters in a compound that was supposed to be lightly defended. The fighting lasted 4 hours. Arya fired 3,000 rounds, went through 12 magazines, burned through 2 barrels. When it was over, 47 enemy dead. 0 Ranger casualties. Master Sergeant Rivera found her afterward sitting against a wall, hands shaking from the recoil. "You okay, Davis?" "Yeah, just a lot. You kept us alive in there. That volume of fire you put out, that's what stopped them from overrunning our position." He sat down beside her. "I've been doing this for 16 years. I've worked with a lot of gunners. You're one of the best I've seen." "Thank you, Sergeant. But you're carrying something. I can see it in your eyes. Whatever happened before you got here, it's still with you." She thought about Jennings, Rodriguez, Thompson, Vickers. 4 names she'd never forget. "I lost people, Sergeant. Good people. And I couldn't save them. None of us can save everyone. That's the burden we carry as Rangers. We do everything right and people still die. Not because we failed, because war doesn't care how good you are." He stood up. "But you're here. You're still fighting. And that means something. Don't waste it feeling guilty about the people you couldn't save. Honor them by protecting the people you can." She looked at him. "How do I do that?" "You keep being you. Keep being the soldier who gives a damn. Keep being the one who runs toward the fight instead of away from it. That's how you honor them." The deployment ended 60 days later. 12 missions, 217 enemy killed, 1 Ranger wounded, non-critical. They flew back to Fort Benning as heroes. But Arya didn't feel like a hero. She felt like a survivor. Someone who'd been in the right place at the right time, made the right decisions, and lived when others died. 6 months after graduating Ranger School, she got promoted to sergeant. A year later, Sergeant First Class. 2 years later, she was Master Sergeant Davis Platoon Sergeant of 1st Platoon Alpha Company, 3rd Ranger Battalion. She'd become the leader she'd always wanted to be. The soldier people looked up to, the one who mattered. But late at night when she couldn't sleep, she still thought about FOB Sentinel, about Echo 6. About the girl who'd been invisible until she drove an SUV into hell and changed everything. She kept Kowalski's coin in her pocket. Always. On every mission, every deployment, every moment when things got hard and she wanted to quit. And she never forgot what Banks had told her. You don't fight because you love killing. You fight because you love the people you're protecting. That was the truth she carried. That was what separated her from the people she'd killed. That was what made her a ranger instead of just another soldier with a gun. 5 years after that day at FOB Sentinel, she got a call from Kowalski. He'd retired, was teaching ROTC at some college in Wisconsin. His voice was older, tired, but still strong. "Hey, Davis, just wanted to check in, see how you're doing." "I'm good, Sergeant. Still with the regiment. Still kicking doors." "I heard. Master Sergeant now. Leading your own platoon. Your dad would be proud." "He passed away last year. Cancer." "Ah, hell. I'm sorry." "It's okay. I got to see him before he went. Told him about everything. About you, about Echo 6, about Ranger School. You know what he said? What? He said, you became exactly who you were always meant to be. Just took everyone else a while to see it." Kowalski was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick. He was right. You were always a warrior, Davis. Some of us just needed you to prove it before we could see it. Thanks, Sergeant, for everything, for believing in me when nobody else did. I didn't believe in you at first, but you made me believe. That's all you. Don't forget that. They talked for another hour. About Echo 6, about the soldiers who'd moved on, and the ones who were still fighting. About the war that never seemed to end, and the people who kept fighting it anyway. When they hung up, Arya sat in her empty apartment, holding Kowalski's coin, thinking about how far she'd come from that morning, when she'd been just a driver. She thought about the 69 people she'd killed to protect her family, about Jennings, Rodriguez, Thompson, and Vickers, about the thousands of rounds she'd fired, and the hundreds of missions she'd run, and the countless times she'd put her life on the line for soldiers she barely knew. And she realized something. She'd spent years trying to prove she wasn't invisible, trying to matter, trying to be seen. But the truth was simpler than that. She'd always mattered, from the very first day. Not because of what she could do, but because of who she was. A soldier who cared. A leader who protected. A warrior who fought not for glory, but for family. Some people just took longer to see it, but once they saw it, they never forgot. Master Sergeant Arya Davis, U.S. Army Ranger, closed her eyes and let herself rest. Tomorrow there would be another mission, another fight, another chance to prove that the invisible could become unstoppable. But tonight she was just a girl from Montana who'd driven into hell and come out the other side stronger than anyone ever imagined. And that was enough. Because the deadliest weapon in any war zone wasn't size, strength, or rank. It was the soldier nobody saw coming. The driver who became a legend. The invisible girl who became a ranger. And she was never going back.